Welcome everybody. I would like to talk about our research in adding Chromium to Eclipse. I also want to learn and have your feedback, so be free to ask questions every time. A few words about myself. I started Eclipse using having an Eclipse innovation grant nearly 20 years ago, back in university, long time ago, and I'm a tool developer. I'm an Eclipse plugin developer. I co-founded Yatta in the meanwhile. I'm not now responsible together with Freddy for the Yatta checkout, which you might have heard about in the previous talk, or visit us at our booth if you want to learn more. And I'm still very much involved in Eclipse, so I'm lead of the Eclipse Marketplace client, package maintainer of Java EPP package, and in the planning council. And I, as a tool developer, believe for having good tools out there, to being innovative, we need an open ecosystem, a vendor-neutral IDE, a vendor-neutral community where new ideas can be tested, where startups can grow. An open environment, open to everyone, to open source and to commercial products. And for me, and I guess that's also that's why I choose to build on Eclipse, and also that's the mission of Eclipse. And if I say Eclipse, I'm talking about the Eclipse IDE here. You may know that there's now a IDE working group also, which tries to to improve the Eclipse IDE, and it's open to everyone. So please join the meetings, subscribe to the mailing list, give your ideas there. It's really important for me that we, and for us, that we bring the Eclipse IDE forward, that we improve the Eclipse IDE, because it's a central, that's where the developer are, right? So as a tool developer, you meet the people in the IDE. That's where they use your tools. And if you, some of you might have joined the IDE working group yesterday and have had also some discussions about the IDE. Let's put it that way, there's still work to do. And there are things to improve. And we wanted to find out, me as a marketplace client lead, of course, for the marketplace, what can we do to improve things? And we set up a survey with several questions and ask our users. This time we ask the tool developers, the plugin developers, so the vendors, so to say, what would you like to have? Question? No. Okay. And that's the result. So for the software tool monetization, we have the checkout, and now we want to talk about user interface, UI UX, which also quite important. So also for me, the Eclipse IDE somehow feels a little bit, well, it's not the most freshest, it's not the most modern user experience, it's not the most modern UI. So with this result, I went to my team and said, okay, we have to improve the Eclipse UI. So who is expert in SWT programming? Didn't have so many in my team, and also the young guys at university don't learn so much SWT programming. And then I asked the few experienced SWT developers, so improving my marketplace client here, small one, should be quite easy, right? And they said, wow, it's SWT, and give it a fresh look there. Oh, that's not that easy. And then I asked, okay, what do you want to use? And of course, where the magic currently happens regarding UI is web-based technology. So there are frameworks like Angular, like React, Vue, things like that, where there's really much innovation, where there's really much movement in the last years, and we should use something like that. And yeah, since the marketplace client needs UI improvement, we said, okay, maybe we should not go with SWT, but do it based on web-based technology. And should be easy, right? We have a browser integration in Eclipse, so just go for it, implement it in Angular, and we can display it there. Well, this is also not that easy, because the browser integration, at least in Windows, is Internet Explorer. And yeah, on Linux, it's WebKit, and it's also, well, there are some problems with GTK4, and sometimes you have install additional things, and so it's very highly operating system dependent, and it's using very outdated browsers, so it's not usable for those modern tool stack. There are some issues in the Eclipse community widely discussed. Here was one that tried to implement Chromium in Eclipse. There were some ideas and some things tried, but there is not yet a real solution. So we said, okay, let's investigate here a little bit and let's do some research. And we had a look at basically 3 topics. So we said, okay, maybe we can improve this idea with platform-dependent browsers, or we can use Chromium, which is a widely most used browser. So we need the Chrome browser, and the lib Chromium itself, there's a renderer behind it. It's open source. You can use it, and we tried a tight integration using the Chromium Embedded Framework, and we also tried a more decoupled approach using Electron. And yeah, I want to present you our results of the research and discuss it with you, and would love to have your feedback. Okay, regarding the platform-dependent browsers. So for Windows, Edge would be, well, it's installed with every Windows, so that would be a solution. There already is kind of integration in Eclipse, so it's possible to use it with Edge. And of course, it has a lot of benefits because we outsource all the maintenance of the browser to the user. So we don't have to care about updating, security updates. That's all done by the operating system or the user. We don't have to take care about that. We have to ship it, so additional size is no problem. Eclipse doesn't get bigger. And we also, since it's based on the OS, we typically have GPU accelerations. But there are some drawbacks with this approach. Of course, it's different for every operating system. And then I want to develop my plugin, or what I want to show in Eclipse, just for one platform and not for 3 so different browsers. Maybe you can use Edge as well under Linux, but well, untested. Not so. We haven't dived into that deeper. And also another big drawback is that the API, this WebView 2 that we need for it, is currently not available in the stable Edge release. So you need to install a developer release of the Edge or Canary version. And well, that's why we said, okay, maybe let's go for another approach. And I said there was also some approach in the past. It was from Make Technology, or I think they are called Equal now. They use the Chromium Embedded Framework. Also Spotify, for example, uses to have a really cool, fresh desktop UI, and it's also supported by the Spotify team. So quite good idea. And can't we integrate that one? The problem with the Mac technology approach was from the architecture, they generated some kind of Rust-based wrappers that were somehow, it was somehow complex, and the SWT team said, we are not able to maintain it. And there was a update in lib Chromium, and because it was very tight coupled, this broke everything, at least for Linux and Mac, and so then it was no longer working with the newest Chromium, so it does only support a very old Chromium version, was not able to update, and the SWT team was not able to maintain it. And of course that kills, so this was already part of SWT, but flew out with the next release. We said, okay, if we can rid of this complexity a little bit, we used the Java wrapper for the Chromium Embedded Framework, JSAF, and then we can get rid of this Rust-based thing. This thing is also maintained by the Spotify guys, so quite nice. Let's try that. I can show you, at least for Windows, we had really fast a prototype, and this one was working great. Let's go to the demo. So you can here open a new view. Say other. So we have here Chromium view that is integrated. Somehow flickering a bit, but maybe that's acceptable. So I like the GitHub page to test a little bit, because they have a quite complex animation here, where you can see, okay, it's also on that screen. It's working quite fluently, quite fast, pretty good. Also the rest of the website. So if it's fast enough for that, it's fast enough for most of the Eclipse plugins. So it's pretty cool, but sadly there are some drawbacks. Talking about security updates. So when Chromium released the new security updates, it takes some time till it's integrated in Chromium Embedded Framework, and then it again takes some time until it's integrated in the Java adapter. So that might be a problem, especially for bigger companies. And we also face the same problem that the Mac technology approach has with Linux and Mac, because these update really breaks something. Technically the SWT rendering engine and the libchromium rendering engine interferes and deadlocked somehow, causing high CPU load. We found a workload for Linux, but no solution for Mac yet. So we said, okay, and the next update can break this again. So we said, okay, maybe that's not the best approach. Let's try something different. You've seen the demo. Okay, and then we said, okay, why not use Electron? So and have a somehow more decoupled approach. And this somehow feels like a strange architecture, but it works. So we start an Electron that renders via off-screen rendering an image into memory, sends this image via socket communication to a SWT canvas, which then displays it to the user. The user can maybe click on it or do key inputs. We send this input from the canvas back to the Electron, and then it reacts again. There are possibilities to make this faster, because of course we are sending quite a lot via the socket communication. So this Electron already supports dirty regions, so it's only the part that has changed is sent back to the SWT canvas. Maybe you can also say, okay, socket communication might not be the fastest. We can change this to shared memory. We left this for later because, well, we were already quite satisfied with the results here. And let me give you also a small demonstration. So maybe let's have first a look at the code to see how easy this solution is. So I have a small TypeScript program which basically configures the Electron and which starts up the Electron. So first thing it does, it analyzes some command line parameters, and then it waits for the Electron to be ready, and then it registered for the paint event, and on paint event it sends the image to the SWT process. Here it does some dirty region calculation and then finally sends it back to the SWT. And on the other hand, there is here for the client, the Electron process itself listens for data, and for example, if there's a character pressed, then this is sent as an event to the Electron. And this are, well, just 130 lines of code in TypeScript, and the same. We have the same on the other side for Java. Well, for Java we need 600 lines of code, but still that is still acceptable, and it's maintainable also by the SWT team in case if something needs to be fixed or something like that. So we mainly have a graphical context here. Of course, for this canvas, we subscribe several listeners, like mouse listener, that sends the event back to the Electron, and we have a queue where we listen here for the paint events. And if I got a new paint event, I draw the image to the graphical graphic context and trigger a redraw on the canvas, and that's almost it. And if we start it now, we have it here. Maybe you can have a look again on GitHub, and you see it's software rendered. So this is not yet not as fluent as with GPU support, but as I said, that is a really complex animation. So the rest of the website is really quite fluid, and to really test it, to have some example more like in an IDE, I just open a SIA. So this is now SIA inside SWT. So you see a cloud IDE inside, inside Eclipse, so to say, so that you see, okay, it can be used that way. It's fast enough to be used that way, even with this approach here. Needs a few seconds to load, and then it's a graphical editor inside that IDE, that example that you can see here. So here it already is, and so you can open the graphical editor, can use it really fluently. There's also a structured editor where you can edit everything you have inside an IDE, and it's really fast enough here. So okay, so we were quite satisfied with the results. Also, the Electron is very fast with updates. So when Chromium has an update, the same day or the next day, Electron also has this update. Maybe we need some online update mechanism because it might not be enough to have an update with every SIMREL release. But since we have a really small API. You have just seen it. It's just these sending these events and this paint event and keystroke events back and forth. Since we have only the small API, it should be very easy to update the Electron. At least in the past, it was quite simple to always have the latest lib Chromium and the latest Electron here. But of course, using software rendering here has some drawbacks. It somehow reduces the frame rate. Some fancy stuff like 3D CSS currently can't be done. You can have GPU acceleration, but that makes it even slower, since it's rendered then on GPU, copied back to memory, sent to the SWT process, and then again copied to the CPU. You only will use this for special cases, I think, but it's possible to do it that way. But we have one major blocker that works good for Mac, Linux, and Windows, but not for Mac with Retina displays. Because there, when we copy the image to the display, this is quite slow. And their frame rate stops working. And this seems to be a problem with SWT. I stripped it down to a very simple example, which I also have attached to these to this ticket, and that has nothing to do with our Chromium integration, where we simply copy an image to the display in SWT, and without a Retina display on Mac, it's pretty fast. With a Retina display, it's really slow. And I also talked to the guys from IBM, which that support me there, and finally found out that this native draw and rect seems to be the problem, but we have no solution yet. So if you're expert with Mac native rendering engine, and we will be really grateful if you could help there, and we'll be happy for support. There might be other solutions. Maybe we can use OpenGL if here this native SWT does not work. That we could try out as well, but we want to solve it using plain SWT. And so to conclude, we have seen those three approaches. We also discussed it with several stakeholders in the community, with the SWT team, with the team developing support for Mac and so on. And we are aware that for this Electron-based approach, there are some drawbacks, but it seems for plugin development and for what we need inside Eclipse, it might be the best solution, and that's why we currently are following this path, try to eliminate the blocker, and came up with a really cool solution that where you can use web technologies inside Eclipse, where you have the newest browser inside Eclipse, because that's really demanded by many in the community, and that's why we took the time and took our prototype, open sourced it. It's available on GitHub. We also added some documentation that you can test on your own, that you can integrate it into your plugin. There's also a small example already for a terminal plugin using this technology. There are some issues. Some of those are, just work that needs to be done. For example, for the terminal plugin, we currently don't map the whole, have not done the whole keyboard mapping, so modifiers are not yet supported, and Control-C is an important shortcut for a terminal plugin. So that needs to be done, but that's easy. But there is at least this blocker for Mac, and if have a look on our issues and on the GitHub webpage, and we will be very happy and very pleased for for support or for feedback or for other ideas, because we really want to improve the Eclipse IDE and to have a modern web browser integrated into Eclipse. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention and open to questions.
So it looks very interesting. I wanted to give a bit of feedback about the original attempt that Equo did.
Yeah.
We integrated their solution into our product, and it's working well now. So it is feasible, that approach. I remember from your talk that you mentioned that they had a Rust integration layer, so they dropped that entirely. They also went the Ceph route and the GCEF binding. You mentioned that you had deadlock issues with the scheduling of events in SWT and in Ceph. So they had them too, and they fixed them.
But it's not open source.
It's not open source, but I'm just giving you kind of like that avenue is feasible.
Okay.
And so it's currently integrated in our product. We're shipping with that thing. They're at Chromium 88, so it's not bleeding edge yet. But and we're shipping Linux, Windows, and Mac. It seems to be working well, and it's more responsive than what I saw with the, which is obvious if you see the amount of data you must be copying, must be impressive.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. So, yeah, just saying that that option is feasible.
Oh.
Just a quick comment. Equo has version 106 now, I think, open source.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's under GPL, but it's open source. Yeah.
When did they open source it? Because I checked recently.
Like a week or two, something like that, maybe. I'm not sure. I have one question.
Okay, might be worth to have a look at.
What's the implication of having this server on the background, like a Node.js server, probably?
Sorry, which server?
You are running Electron, right?
Yeah.
So you have a Node.js server on the background.
Yeah.
Is there any like implication on that?
Yeah, of course. Else you just have to take care about security updates for libchromium. Now you have to take care about security updates for Electron, which includes libchromium and Node.js. So the update interval should be even shorter if you want to be on the latest security hotfix level. So I guess that's the biggest implication. It also gets a little bit bigger. So I guess the Ceph approach is it's maybe 90 megabytes, and with including Electron, it's about 100 megabytes, something like that.
Thank you.
Maybe a question.
Yeah.
Without the microphone. Is it possible to get the DOM when you select something in the browser, and to get the DOM and maybe extract some information to copy and paste in the application? For instance, if you have an application that displays several instances of browser with, for instance, charts, I don't know, something like this.
That is.
Is it possible to select something and of course you have to write code to extract the information, but that could be, for instance, interesting to get the price of something. Or
Yeah, it is. So in all approaches, I guess they offer JavaScript interface, and you can do this using the JavaScript interface with Electron. It's quite simple and quite nice. API, but we plan to implement the Eclipse browser interface, which also has a JavaScript bridge, and you can do things like this via this bridge. And but maybe we will have an even extended API where you can also have this nice Electron API to do such things.
But how do you plan to deal with the problem of the selection? Because when you click in the browser, you will navigate, and when you want to select something, it's also a click. So maybe this is not. Maybe we have to shift click or something like this to say I want to select. For instance, if you have a table in your HTML page, and you want to just to click on the line, and the line represents something that you want to use in your Eclipse application. You see what I mean? If you want to extract information from the web page.
Implement D&D or transfer.
Yeah.
Something like this, yes. So for instance, you click on the line, why not? You can drag and drop it. Or you at least copy in the clipboard the content of the line
Yeah.
in a specific format.
I
But
could
if you click on the line, you will maybe go to another.
Yeah, you can, for example, in your web page, implement a on-click and a listener, which communicates via this JavaScript bridge and informs the Eclipse
You have
that
to change
that
the web page in this case.
you have yeah.
Is the plan to replace all views in Eclipse on the long term, if you get it to work? Or is it just for the marketplace, or what are the plans?
Well, as I said, we plan to implement the browser interface, so then it's completely exchangeable with for example, with the current Internet Explorer approach, and then it's decision of the community if we want to do this the default, if we want, as we have tried in the past, make it part of SWT or an extra plugin on top on SWT. So I would love to see something like that to be part of SWT, that you have a fixed browser which is up to date inside SWT. I would love to see that, and I would, yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Suppose you want to render diagrams like UML diagrams with some auto layout. These often depend on fonts. So layout depends on fonts. If I get the boxes right, anyway, it's often a back and forth between some logic that does the layout algorithm and the concrete rendering, which is done by the browser. The approach that you have with the custom Electron app, does it allow to introspect the render data of the Chromium to get the coordinates or the font sizes or the metrics of whatever is in the DOM? Or is that kind of too encapsulated in the browser process?
Well, you can do whatever you can do with JavaScript in the web application itself, because you can interchange information via the JavaScript bridge. And I guess at least height calculation and length calculation and things can be done with JavaScript, and that can be sent back to the Eclipse then. Actually, we do something like that for in our product. We calculate the height and send it back to Eclipse to set the height of the dialog that is the SWT dialog that is outside. So we do something like that, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. And if you have further questions, visit us at our booth. And thank you.